Okay, guys, we're going to go on to the second of the three kings. I'm trying to push on you the idea that there are three sacrifice throws, or sutemi waza, which are ideally suited to the sport of jiu-jitsu. These are tomoenage, sumigeshi, and ukiwaza. It's my belief that sumigeshi is the best adapted throw for the sport of jiu-jitsu. Now, I know what you're all saying. You said, wait a minute. A while ago, you said tomoenage was the best adapted throw. What's going on here? Is it sumigeshi or is it tomoenage? The truth is, guys, I can't make up my mind. They're both so damn good that after 25 years of coaching, I can't tell them apart. You can flip a coin as to which one is the best for the sport of jiu-jitsu. Some days I think it's sumigeshi, sometimes I think it's tomoenage. I can't make up my mind. I guess they're both first place. Okay, so first, what is the difference? Well, in tomoenage, I place a foot on my training partner's hip, and I lift his feet off the floor with a throwing leg, okay? In sumigeshi, I'll just bend over, buddy. Let's face this way. I don't put a foot on my training partner's hip. Grip me, grip. My throwing action is instead a foot here, behind my training partner, either on this side or this side, depending on the throw, and it's the shoelaces that make contact at the back of my training partner's hips, that take my training partner up and over and into the throw. Just like tomoenage, the idea is to bring his head over my head. Just like tomoenage, I need his weight on his toes. And just like tomoenage, he throws over my head into the throw. Okay? But the difference is, you will be throwing with your shoelaces on the back of his hip instead of the sole of your foot on the front of his hip. Okay? So the directionality of the throw is similar. Goes overhead. There's some similarity there. You're going to find the grips are often substantially different from tomoenage. Okay, so these two throws, tomoenage and sumigeshi, work extremely well together. As a general rule, tomoenage is more of a throw with his distance between us. So our grips are often sleeve lapel grips with his separation of my chest and his chest. Whereas sumigeshi, on the other hand, is typically a very close range throw, with his contact shoulder to shoulder and chest to chest. So sumigeshi in general is a close range tight throw with lots of body contact, whereas tomoenage is mostly a throw from a greater distance with very little body contact. And you will see in tomoenage, the sole of my foot makes contact at the front of his hip, as opposed to sumigeshi, where, let's face this way, right? The shoelaces of my foot make contact at the back of the hip. Just like tomoenage, I need his head over my head. But instead of lifting my opponent, we just rotate him over and into the throw. Okay? So that's the basic idea behind a sumigeshi. Just like tomoenage, this throw involves no back exposure. At all times, my chest faces my opponent. This is one of the reasons why I favor it so much. Unlike so many of the throws of jiu-jitsu, there's no danger of exposing my back to my opponent as I enter, okay? My chest faces my opponent the whole time, so there's no back exposure. There's no neck exposure. I'm not putting my neck in a position where he can grip my head. At all times, my head is in a safe position, okay? There is some belt exposure, but it's not the kind of belt exposure he can use. And the truth is, every time my belt is exposed, so is his. Okay, so yes, there is some belt exposure, but it's not meaningful for him. Okay, if it all goes wrong, if the sumigeshi fails completely, let's say I can't bring his head over my head, okay, then it just tends to go into an open guard situation. And from here, there's many ways that we can turn it from a failed takedown into an open guard scenario. So like tomoenage, even when it fails, there's no really deep consequences, no bad consequences. For these reasons, just like tomoenage, I think this is a superb throw for the sport of jiu-jitsu. Very little risk. No real dark consequences if the throw goes wrong. And of course, there's a lot of overlap with groundwork. You guys have been using sumigeshi since your first days as white belts. Every day, you guys are hitting variations of sumigeshi down on the floor. You've been doing it for years. So why can't we just do the same thing in the standing position? It's so easy for you guys to learn this because there's so much overlap to skills you've already been using for years. All you have to do is put it in the context of the standing position. It's not difficult. It's the same general motion. because there's that huge amount of overlap, I'm very confident that once you guys understand some of the nuances of application in the standing position, you're going to be throwing people pretty quickly. It's not going to take you long. And you can rack up some big points with this throw. It's the ideal complement to tomonagi. My point to you is this: treat tomonagi and sumigeshi as brother and sister. In situations where you're working sleeve lapel with distance between your chest and his chest, this is tomonagi time. Okay? When he comes in close and you're working shoulder to shoulder and chest to chest, this is sumigeshi time. So close contact, sumigeshi. Far contact, tomonagi. Okay? That's the general rule. Treat these two as two brothers and sisters, and you're going to be throwing a lot of people. When you get close, sumigeshi. When there's distance, tomonagi. And you're going to find that just like each other, even if it fails, you just end up an open guard. It's a skill you've already been using for a long time on the ground. You just need to learn a few things about how to apply it in the standing position, and you're going to be throwing people very soon. We're trying to take you guys down the road to mastery for sumigeshi in the standing position. First thing you guys need to understand, there's three major forms. There's others, but there's three major forms of sumigeshi that you're going to need to know in the standing position. The first one is side sumigeshi or yoko sumigeshi. The idea here, just like yoko tomonagi, is that I fall across in front of my opponent. Okay, take a strong stance, feet wide, facing this way. Okay, when I stand side on to my training partner, like so, and I fall across my training partner's body, and I take my right foot to my training partner's right leg and step in like so, we now have a yoko sumigeshi. My right foot to his right upper thigh that takes him over my right shoulder. This is yoko sumigeshi. Okay? The idea is everything goes right, right, right. I'll talk about that later. So right, right, right rule. So once again, I have a right power hand that goes over my training partner's shoulder. I put my head on his right shoulder. Okay. I step in with my legs, and from here, my right foot goes to his right upper thigh and takes him over my right shoulder. Then from here, we come up into top position. Okay. When right goes on right, this is typically a yoko sumigeshi. In addition, there's the idea that I fall across my training partner's body, make a strong lifting base. So in sumigeshi, where I fall across in front of my training partner, here, this is going to be an example of yoko sumigeshi because I'm falling across his body. Okay? And as a result, we can take him up and over the right shoulder and throw. This stands in contrast to front sumigeshi. In the case of front sumigeshi, we take a reverse overback grip and lock in like so. So I'm directly in front of my training partner. Now from here, I step in and we take our man up and over and end up in top position. Okay? So we're directly in front of the man. So once again, front sumigeshi, we pull, and from the position in front of him, I enter into the throw. As opposed to his head in front of me, where I end up in a position to throw like so. Then there is a third variation of sumigeshi. The butterfly sumigeshi, which is very similar to what you guys are already doing on the ground. From here, I put a foot inside my training partner's leg, we sit down to the floor, and we throw the man over. We'll be looking at all three. Now, what's the main difference? In the yoko sumigeshi, I enter and fall side on to my opponent. Yoko, side. Front sumigeshi, it's more of a straightforward entry from the front. And in butterfly sumigeshi, it's kind of like what we do down on the floor from guard position from butterfly guard. The main difference is in butterfly sumigeshi, you throw the man in front of you. So, butterfly sumigeshi, I throw him in front of me. I step in, and he lands right in front of me. In yoko sumigeshi and front sumigeshi, I throw him behind me. Okay? So from here, I throw him behind me. I step in, and he ends up behind me like so. we come up and into top position. So those are the main conceptual differences between the three sumigeshis that you will need to learn. You're going to need to learn Yoko Sumigeshi, Front Sumigeshi, and Butterfly Sumigeshi. If you can hit all three of those on tough resisting opponents, you're going to be known very soon as someone who's highly adept and highly skilled with Sumigeshi, not as a sweep on the ground, but as a takedown from a standing position. It's time to look at us at a completely different variation of Sumigeshi, the Front Sumigeshi. In all of the Yoko Sumigeshis, they all have something in common. Our opponent's head is in front of us. Okay? As you go into the throw, your head will position here. But at least at the start, your opponent's head is in front of you in all the variations. Okay? In front Sumigeshi, your opponent's head will be slightly behind you. This starts with my training partner in front, right versus right situation. I put a reverse power hand on my training partner. We're never naive and just put a regular power hand on my opponent. Now he can go into his throws and cause problems for us. So from right versus right, I come out and I put a reverse power hand on my opponent. I don't care if he grabs me, that's normal, that's fine. I'm not concerned. From this position, my second hand comes on and it's like I'm holding a rope. Okay? I'm going to bring my opponent's head lower than mine and I'm going to dance to the outside, like so that I expose my opponent's back, the belt and the lat. Okay? So starting off tall, I come in like so. I stand right versus right. I fire in my reverse power hand. Okay? I put my second hand on and I start moving and pulling and I expose my opponent's back. Now I turn side on to my training partner and I grip. I'm side on, my second hand comes in and we get to this situation here. You can grip the belt. Don't grip in the middle, grip down here by the far hip. A second alternative is to grip the lat muscle here. In the sport of jiu-jitsu, it is interpreted as some people that it's illegal for me to throw with his head on the outside while I grip the belt. I'll discuss that in the third video. It's actually an interesting topic. Okay, but for now, you can throw like this or you can throw like this. Your choice. They're both great. Okay, from this situation, I stand side on. If I'm naive and I stand front on, my opponent can grab my leg, get a good deep elbow grip deep, and now he can throw me with teguruma. Okay, so it's important that I stand in a deep crouch side on. So when he goes to grab my leg, it's difficult for him to work. Okay, go to lift me, buddy. It's hard for him to lift. Okay, go to lift. And it's easy for me now to use this lift against them and throw them. Okay? So we want to be side on. I start off, grip one, snap the head down, get to the grip that I want, and I stand side on in a crouch. I don't naively stand front on up here where I can easily be lifted. Okay? So once again, right versus right, power hand goes on. Double up. Bring his body down, expose the back, turn side on, and get to our grips. Okay? Now I start pushing into my training partner. If he goes to lift me from here, good luck. It's going to be tough. Okay? Now, as always, watch my right foot. My right foot goes just inside his foot. Always the right foot just inside. Now we hit that action where I fall off to the side and I throw perpendicular to the line that joins his ankles. So I fall. And right, all the way down to the floor. My head is higher than his chest. As he goes to get up, he will run right into a strong pin. Once again. Right versus right, reverse power hand. 2-on-1. Circle, pull the head down. Get the back exposure we're looking for, and grip. Side on body position. Not naive. Up here, we can easily lift and take me down. Down here. Okay? From this position, I step 1. I step 2. Watch as I fall across his body. Like so. My right foot goes in. We lift. And my head is higher than his head. As he goes to turn up to his knees, we come over the top. And we get the pin. facing towards me. Right versus right. Reverse power hand. He can grip you, that's fine. 2 hands on, 1 lapel. Circle, expose the back. Shoot the arm so his head is behind me, as opposed to Yoko Sumigeshi, where the head is in front. Gripping the critical right foot. Now, right. I'm gripping with my right hand on his belt. I step in, I put my right foot in his right thigh and take him over my right shoulder. My head finishes higher than his head and higher than his chest. So as he goes to scramble out of the position, go, scramble out, you end up with a nice pin and points. Always remembering, guys, it's not until 3 seconds after the throw that you'll be judged as to whether you scored or not. So pay attention to the aftermath of the throw. Don't be satisfied with hearing his back hit the ground and go, oh, I threw him. Nope. You only threw him if you get up and control for 3 seconds after the throw itself. That's when you're going to be judged, not the throw itself. In judo and sambo, they judge the throw. In jiu-jitsu, they judge the aftermath of the throw. Big difference. So, right versus right, front sumigeshi. As we play and play, we get our grips. Now from here, the critical right foot inside his foot, the step and lift. He goes to get up, and we come up into a good pin. This is front sumigeshi, and a very, very useful addition to your sumigeshi arsenal in the standing position. There are some potential problems with the rules of jiu-jitsu, insofar as jiu-jitsu forbids throwing your opponent and spiking them into the ground with a belt grip with the head on the outside. The rules of jiu-jitsu actually prohibit the intentional spiking of an opponent. So if my opponent has a single leg with a head on the outside, okay, the rules of jiu-jitsu prevent me gripping the belt and spiking my opponent's head down to the ground. Okay, there were some terrible neck injuries associated with this spiking action. Some people interpret this as sumigeshi with the head on the outside is illegal. What you find is the judges are really looking to get rid of this grip. This grip is mostly used for spiking people head down to the floor. You can get some bad neck injuries, especially when their hands are locked around my leg. They have nothing to protect their head and neck from being spiked down into the ground. Okay. The idea is it's the intention of spiking, which is illegal. When you go to throw with sumigeshi, you don't spike your opponent's head to the ground, you lift his hips. It's one of the safest throws in all of jiu-jitsu. I've been coaching a long time. I've seen a lot of people get wrecked by unsafe throws. In 30 years of coaching, I've never seen anyone get hurt by this method of sumigeshi. I'm teaching it to you because you should know it. It's legal in judo, it's legal in sambo, it's ambiguous in jiu-jitsu. Some people say it's okay, some people say it's not. Some people say, well, it's all about the belt grip. If you don't have a belt grip, you can use it, okay? So if you're worried about competition, I recommend a lat grip. If you're in the gym, just grip here, okay? When you grip the belt, grip the side. Don't grip by the spine. Come down here and control the far hip. Strong grips, ready? Okay, so that's the grip that I want to work with right there. Now, I just position my foot. I fall across my training partner's body. And it's 100% safe. Okay, it's a beautiful throw. And as I said, 30 years of coaching, I've never seen anyone get hurt by that. I've seen other people get absolutely wrecked by other standing maneuvers, flying guard pulls. I've seen flying triangles hurt people. I've seen flying arm locks hurt people, including the people doing the flying arm lock. Jumping guard pulls, flying guard pulls, they're the worst. I've seen more people wreck with those than all the other moves put together. I've seen Tanya Toshi perform poorly, wreck people, but I've never seen this hurt anyone. Okay, so I allow this in my gym. I think it's perfectly safe. The record of judo and sambo supports me. It's used often in the sports of judo and sambo with there's no concern when people use it. They don't have a high proportion of injuries associated with the move. I believe the intention of the IBJJF rule is a good intention. It's designed to stop spiking of the head and neck to the ground. And if you're a malicious person, you could definitely do this. If someone goes to grab your leg and the head is on the outside, and you took an underclasp grip like so, you could definitely spike someone like this and cause terrible injuries to the neck. It's been done, okay? When Giancarlo make a strong, resistant body. If I just step to the outside and just bring everything down this way, Giancarlo's holding my leg. There's nothing to protect his head as he goes forward, and people are being badly hurt with this, okay? So I support this. This should be illegal, okay? Because you're not even trying to throw someone when you do this. You're just trying a messy way of getting them back at an unacceptably high risk to his health, okay? It's not even a skill move. It's a messy way of getting them back. But sumigaeshi is a beautiful high skill move, which is designed not to hurt people, but to throw them. And it's a beautiful move, and it's a very safe one. So in situations where we start off like so, I have no problem with the idea of you gripping the belt in class and throwing this way. If you're in competition and you're worried about being disqualified, I would recommend you grip here, okay? Because the prohibition is on gripping the belt, okay? Now Giancarlo, move around, make a strong resistant body. And from here, we can hit exactly the same move. When I grip that lat muscle, I step my foot inside my training partner's foot. I come through, and we end up with a nice little pin over our training partner's body, okay? This is a very effective way to throw in the standing position with the front sumigaeshi. We're looking at front sumigaeshi. An important question for you as athletes to ask is, how do I ensure that I end up in top position over my opponent? Because remember, guys, in jiu-jitsu, unlike judo and sambo and other throwing arts, you're not judged by the throw itself. No one cares if you hit a picture-perfect sumigaeshi and land the guy flat on his back with momentum, and then he gets up on top of you. All you score at most is an advantage, okay? In jiu-jitsu, you're not judged by the throw. You're judged by the aftermath or the result of the throw. There is a big difference between scoring criteria in jiu-jitsu and the other grappling arts, okay? You must understand this. I'm going to say it again because it's very important. In jiu-jitsu, you are judged by the outcome of the throw, not the throw itself, okay? The most the throw itself can score is an advantage. It's not going to score points. You only score if you demonstrate control for 3 seconds after the throw. And that's not an easy thing to do. Okay, how are we going to score with sumigaeshi? There are 2 main methods. One is very easy, the other is slightly more difficult, but still very doable, okay? You will remember when we did the tomonagi that my stipulation was it's going to be pretty hard to land mounted or side control with tomonagi. It's possible, but it's unlikely on someone your own size and your own skill level. Most of the time, we just aim to get our head higher than his head, and we scramble for top position and score our points. Well, I got some good news for you. In the case of sumigaeshi, it's much more likely that you're going to actually land on top of your opponent in a controlling pin because you're closer to him. You're basically chest to chest when you perform the throw. And because you're chest to chest when you start the throw, there's a good chance you'll be chest to chest when you finish the throw. And as a result, you'll pin more people. This is one of the advantages that sumigaeshi has over tomoe-nage. Okay, so if I start with my training partner, there are 2 main methods of ensuring that I get top position. One is the higher head position. This is the easier of the 2, and you can use this in more situations than the second method I'm about to show you. So the higher head method involves me basically rolling across my shoulder blades and getting my head higher than his chest. I'll demonstrate. From a situation where we're right versus left, I come forward and I make an interception on my training partner's hand, and I get to an arm trap, okay? From the arm trap, I move my opponent around and I get my foot inside his foot and I fall across his body. I obey the right versus right rule. And as a result, my head is higher than his chest. If my opponent turns into me, I pin. If my opponent turns away from me, I follow the bat and I score on the back. Okay? All I did was grip and come up to this position. Okay, it's pretty easy to do. The second method takes a little more athleticism on your part, but not much more. It's not difficult. You can do this quite often, and that involves a back roll out of the throw that literally lands you on top of your opponent. Okay, it takes slightly more athleticism, but nothing crazy. Any one of you can learn this pretty easily. I'll demonstrate this one out of a front sumigashi. So, right versus right. I bring the head down. I lock up. Strong body. From here, I bring my right foot inside his right foot, and we land right across our training partner's side. So right from the start, I land in the pin. When he goes to get out of here, he's stuck right in the pin. I chose side control, but I could have chosen the mount too. Let's look at the mount. So front sumigashi. My right foot inside his left, and we end up in the mounted position. Immediately, I close my feet, we pin, and we're mounted. Okay? So this is a very realistic way to follow our opponent over. Two methods, in fact. One is the easier method, where we just focus on getting our head higher than his chest. Not quite as controlling, but still pretty damn good. Good enough for the vast majority of cases. And the other involves a tighter connection to our opponent, usually through the belt, so that we actually stay chest to chest throughout the throw and literally land either mounted or side control on your opponent. I generally prefer landing across side. It's a more stable pin, and you can always progress into the mount later on and score your points on the floor. So let's have a look at this one more time. Okay, the first is the easier method. I'll demonstrate it out of an arm trap, but it could be done from any one of the sumigashis we looked at. I come in on my training partner, separate his feet, and from here, I just come up and I put my head higher than his chest. Okay, so I'm not on top of my opponent. There's no pin here. I'm not chest to chest. Now, I just come up to my base. As he turns into me, I turn it into chest to chest. If he turns away from me, I turn it into chest to back. And I get my score. Okay? So that's the easier of the two options. The second one, it's slightly harder, but nothing crazy. You can all do it. I come in, expose my training partner's belt, and now I use a tighter connection to my training partner. And as a result, we come right up into a solid pin, and you land chest to chest. When he goes to struggle out of here, it's not easy. You've got a good solid pin, and you're more or less guaranteed to score points. So that's how you ensure you get top position, and you ensure that you get 2 points for the throw. Nothing more frustrating than hitting a nice sumigashi, hearing your opponent's back slam into the mat, and then he just scrambles up and away from you. It's like, it's annoying. All you got was an advantage. When you get that man up and over, you want to get up on top and score your points. You deserve those points. You hit him with a nice sumigashi, get up on top, show 3 seconds of control, and get that 2 points that you well deserve. We've looked at Yoko sumigashi. We've looked at front sumigashi. Now it's time for us to look at butterfly sumigashi from the standing position. Now, I know a lot of you are thinking to yourselves, this is going to be great. I love butterfly sumigashi when I'm down on the ground. If you can show me how to use this in the standing position, it's going to make my life pretty damn easy. I've been using butterfly sumigashi for years. Show me how to do it in the standing position. Maybe you've all been watching Gordon Ryan in competition and seeing how he throws a lot of people down on the floor with this. Now let's look at how we can translate it to the standing position. We'll have Giancarlo over here. Okay, let's all remind ourselves of sumigashi down on the floor. Typically done when we have an opponent on 2 knees. Typically done when we go over the back and get a hold of our training partner's belt. Typically done when we get a hold of our training partner's sleeve. Spread your base out wide, buddy. As I put my shoulder down to the floor, he will probably go into a high tripod position, like so. And then from here, we use our foot on the floor to get his head down towards the mat, and we push off our base leg and throw our man and end up in top position. Okay? You've all been doing it for years, and you've all had a lot of success with it over the years on the floor. Now it's time to teach you how to do this in the standing position. Okay? First things first. Most of the time, when we do this on the floor, we use the belt. Not always, but most of the time, we prefer the belt grip. Okay, let's be honest. I think you can use the belt grip in the standing position. It's not wrong. You definitely can do it. But it does tend to create a situation where you get so far underneath your opponent that foot placement with the butterfly hook becomes problematic. What does this mean? Okay, standing situation, Giancarlo. Let's face this way. Okay, Giancarlo comes out. I go over the top and I get a hold of Giancarlo's belt. Okay, I take a hold of Giancarlo's sleeve on the other side. He probably gets a hold of mine, spread your legs wide. Now from here, I step my foot inside. I go foot to foot. And when it's time for me to penetrate and put my left foot on, something weird happens. I kind of end up with him on my knee. I don't really get my foot in place. I kind of went too far. And now he drops on top of me and you're like, oh man, I got crushed, okay? It's important to understand that even though butterfly sumigashi on the ground and standing are related to each other, they are a little bit different. I'm going to urge you not to use a full belt grip until you get a little more expertise in the throw. You can do it. It's not wrong. I'm not going to say don't do it. But what I am going to suggest to you, use a mid-back grip. I've always found students do best with a mid-back grip than they do with a belt grip. Okay? So what's a mid-back grip? It's actually very closely related to the half trap that we saw earlier in the Yoko Sumigashi. My opponent comes out opposite stance. He comes out, gets a hold of my grip, just like so. I'm going to pull his elbow in, and I'm going to take a mid-back grip right here. Okay, so it's kind of like a half trap. Now from here, I have my mid-back grip. I put my foot inside, and I catch my training partner's opposite sleeve. Okay, so if you look at our grip, I'm here, halfway down his back. Okay, and he goes to pull away from me. It's an excellent controlling grip, and it gives us more distance to work with. Okay, now normally I go in close with the sumigashi and I go deep underneath my opponent, not with butterfly sumigashi. I do not pass the line of his leg. I just step and I place my foot here above his knee. Okay, guys, don't go in too deep with this one. Okay, it's not like front and Yoko Sumigashi where there's no such thing as over penetration. Here there is over penetration. Okay, watch what happens when I over penetrate. I can't get my left foot onto the throwing position, and now he stalls, and you just end up getting crushed underneath him, and it degenerates into a guard pull. Okay, again, it's not the end of the world. You ended up in open guard. It's not that bad. That's one of the great things about Sumigashi. Even when you screw it up, nothing really bad happens. But let's be honest, you wanted to throw him, right? You wanted to score 2 points. Okay, what I'm going to recommend is that you plant your foot in front of the line for butterfly sumigashi. So he grips, I go mid-back. When I put my first foot in, I don't get too close to him. I step to the pyramid position and I put my left foot just inside his knee. Now I fall down to my side, and it's the perfect position to throw and get top. Okay? So the big difference between butterfly sumigashi and the other forms of sumigashi, Yoko and front, is you don't go inside and penetrate the line of the ankles. You actually stand in front of the line. And as a result, you pull him onto the throw rather than penetrate underneath him and get under a center of gravity and throw. You bring him to you. So we start off opposite stance. He gets a grip. I bend his arm. I get my first grip in. I get a hold of my training partner, and now we're ready to attack. I start pulling him around the mat. I place my foot in front, and I come in foot to foot in front of the line, and I place my foot just inside his knee. Now I pull, not flat on my back, but onto my side. And as a result, it's just like sumigashi from guard position. Just like sumigashi from guard, you push off your bottom leg and end up in this position to throw. Okay? Directionality of the throw, very important. Unlike front and side sumigashi, you don't throw perpendicular to the line. Stand like so, feet apart. I throw this way, forwards corner. I do not throw straight out. like a front or side sumigashi. I throw diagonal. Okay, so we come out opposite stance. He grips, I go over the top, I take mid back. I get my second hand on. I start to pull my opponent, separate his feet. I plant my first foot, I step to the pyramid, and I plant my foot, and I'm going to throw out to Giancarlo's left front corner. My foot goes just inside his knee, pull him on, and we end with our chest higher than his chest. And as a result, we get a beautiful score. If you follow these strictures, you're going to find that one of your favorite moves down on the ground becomes one of your favorite moves in the standing position. I love this move because you can do it when your opponent has what most people think is a dominant inside grip. Most people are going to tell you that when he has the inside position, he dominates the gripping game, because most of the time this is true. When he brings his wrist to my wrist, he brings my head out of position. He turns his shoulders across in front of me, and he can throw me. If I resist his pull, now he can throw me backwards. Okay? But if we get this grip here, he gets his grip, I bend his arm, and I get mid back. Okay? Now I keep my hand free, because if he puts a second hand on me, he can start pulling me up and bringing me into throwing position. So I keep my hand back until I get what I want. Now I start pulling him onto his toes. Let's go this way so I don't go to the wall. I start pulling him onto his toes. I step my foot in. Now I go foot to foot at the apex of the pyramid, and we're in perfect position to put our foot inside his knee. I look where I want him to land. We commit to the floor, and we end up with our chest over his chest. We base, demonstrate control for 3 seconds, and we score. Okay? So this is an excellent way to take one of your favorite moves down on the floor and translate it to the standing position. Now, let's take our first lesson into the variations of sumigashi. There's some commonalities between the 3 main variations of sumigashi, some mechanical commonalities. If you understand these commonalities, you're going to be able to use all 3 variations of sumigashi very successfully. The first idea is direction of force. This seems to screw a lot of people up when they first start standing sumigashi throws. Okay, we're going to have our training partner in a square stance in front of us. Let's understand that when someone is in a standing position, bend your legs, buddy, they are easiest to move and off balance when we push and pull in a line that is perpendicular to the line that joins their ankles. It's very easy for me to push and pull along that perpendicular line. Here we have the line drawn out on the mats. If my training partner stands with a line that joins his toes, you will notice as I push and pull along this line, I can easily off balance him forwards and backwards. Make a strong base, bend your knees. If I stand over in this direction, it is now much harder for me to move my opponent with pushing and pulling, because I'm pulling into his base and I'm pushing into the base on the other side. When I change my position, now every push and pull easily off balances him. Here, very difficult to off balance my opponent. Here, very easy. So all of our throws want to be in the direction arched down by this line. Okay, not all of them, but most throws, and sumigashi in particular. Okay, now if I stand on this line, I kind of get in the way of the throw. It's like I'm an obstacle in the path of my own throw. So for most sumigashis, I'll demonstrate it with a Yoko sumigashi. For most sumigashi, make a strong body, what I want to do is fall. Don't go down, just keep a good resistant body. I want to fall across my opponent's body and throw him in the direction of this line. Okay, so there's the direction of my fall, and there's the direction of my throw, which follows that line. Okay, all too often I see students fall in the direction of the throw, and as a result they present an impediment to their own throw. They screw up their own throw. So he stands on the line. If I fall along that line, grip. If I fall along this line, I just pull him on top of me. That's a disaster. Go back up. But if I fall away from the line and throw him along the line, that's when you start throwing people. Okay? So what we need to do is understand the direction of an efficient sumigashi. Stand on the line. The efficient direction is always a line that is perpendicular to the line that joins his toes. So our goal when we lock up with a given sumigashi, grip up, is always to fall across his body and fall out of the way of that line so that I can use my foot to guide him over that line and into the perfect throw. This is true for both yoko and front sumigashis. Similarly, with a front sumigashi, when I grip in here, you will notice once I step in, I go across to the side and I throw him perpendicular to that line upon which he was standing. And as a result, we end up in good pinning position on top of our opponent. Once you understand the directionality of force and the direction in which you must throw your opponent, you're going to start throwing a lot more people. The most common error that I see early on in people's development, sorry, that line's looking rather sorry now, isn't it? It locks up just like so, is they tend to throw, lock up, by falling along that line, they just pull people on top of them. Okay, you get a very disappointing result. What I want to do is fall across and send him over the line, not me. And as a result, you don't become an impediment to your own throw. This is your first understanding of sumigashi, in particular, the side sumigashi and the front sumigashi. This is an important theme that you will see throughout all the demonstrations of these two versions of sumigashi. One of the most important attributes that you're going to have to develop as a sumigashi expert is the ability to penetrate past the line of your opponent's ankles. Okay, we're going to have Giancarlo stand on this line. The line that joins Giancarlo's ankles or toes is your critical demarcation. If you can get past that line or even close to it, you're going to have a lot of success with sumigashi. The further away you are from that line, the less successful you're going to be. Okay, one of the most common problems that people have with variations of sumigashi is they'll get grips on people, and then from here they attempt to throw but don't get past that line. He makes a strong resistant body, and from here I try to pull him on and it all fails. Okay, you kind of got the throw to work, but not enough. Let me explain something to you. Sumigashi is like sex. There's no such thing as over-penetration. You see that line, your job is to try and get past it. We're in front of our training partner. Watch my left foot for a right sumigashi. My opponent comes out and grips up. I get my grips on him. I go over the top. He gets his grips on me. Now, as I step in with my first foot, I challenge the line. But the real penetration step is my left leg. Watch my left foot bypass the line. And as a result, we get the perfect opportunity that puts his head over my head and creates a strong sumigashi action, which gives us our throw. Okay? Guys, every time you go into sumigashi, you must challenge the line. You must try to get at least up to the line and preferably past it. Please understand you have 2 feet. The first one challenges the line. The second one surpasses the line. Watch my 2 feet work in unison. Okay, there's my opponent's base. I observe the line. I don't do that consciously. I do it with my peripheral vision. But that's the line in my head that I have to beat. As we come out in grip fight, I get my first grip on my training partner. From here, I go over the top. I get my power hand set. Okay? First foot challenges the line. Steps up. Gets me close. Second foot gives me directionality. I fall across my opponent's body. And most importantly, it gives me penetration so that I pass the line. Now, I take him in that 90-degree direction we talked about earlier. And we come up with our head higher than his head. As a result, we win the scramble for top position and we get the throw. You must consistently look to get up to the line with your first step and past the line. You've heard the old cliches in life. If you aim for the stars, you might make it to the moon. Same thing with attacking this line. You may not always be able to get past it in a competitive situation, but the more you aim to get past it, even if you don't actually achieve that aim, you'll still get closer to the line, you'll still be more likely to succeed. So if we have Giancarlo facing me in this direction, watch my footwork, we come out towards each other, I get my first hand on, and now we're ready to attack. I draw him onto his toes, I step up towards my training partner, second leg goes in, and as a result, we're able to send the man through and attack. And you'll see that the foot went past the line of the toes, and we got a nice sumigaeshi action as a result. Now, let's look at one of the most common mistakes that people have when they start their sumigaeshi journey. I'm going to have my training partner stand in front of me in a strong rooted stance, and I want you to look and pay attention to my left foot, okay? Please understand that in sumigaeshi, you have two legs. You have an elevating leg and you have a drive leg, okay? So as we lock up with each other in this position, I step in on my training partner. As I come up and I step in with the penetration foot, I come in like so. This creates an elevation leg that hooks into my training partner's body and elevates my training partner. And I have a drive leg that pushes off the floor. My knee can face the ceiling like so, or my knee can face out like so. They're both pretty good options. I've seen champions use both, okay? I personally prefer this one because I get a stronger drive, like a bridging motion. The most common mistake I see with beginners, if you could excuse me, Giancarlo, is they do something like this. They jump in and they have no connection to the floor. They jump in and they put both legs up and they flop like so. And it just looks like an embarrassing disaster, okay? You have to have a foot locked on the floor so that one foot pushes off the mat and the second foot elevates. Only when my opponent loses balance and topples does the drive leg come off the mat so you can come up on top and pin your opponent. Don't take the drive leg off until your opponent is actually throwing, okay? I'm going to show you what it looks like when it all goes wrong. So here's the common beginner's mistake. You lock up, you get grips on each other, you step in and you try to throw with 2 feet and you have no connection to the floor. Okay, and you end up with this kind of embarrassing looking sumigaeshi where you look like a girl on a bad prom night, okay? You have to have an initial connection to the mat and a concerted drive leg, creating power off the floor, and an elevation leg that knocks your opponent's head past your head. So it should look something like this. We lock up with our training partner. We come in, I create the conditions for success by stepping in, and then from here, one leg stays connected to the mat for the longest possible time, and only when he's throwing does my foot leave the mat and I back roll into position, okay? Don't just take 2 feet and try and elevate. You'll never move anyone like that. You need connection with the floor with one foot and elevation with your other foot to throw someone. Only when he's been thrown do you take the drive foot off the mat and rotate through. So there's a definite sequence here where we lock up with a training partner. We step in and we throw like so. Only when he's throwing does this foot come off the mat and we come over into top position, okay? Very important detail. If you want to be an expert with sumigaeshi, you have to understand you got 2 feet working in slightly different ways. You got a drive leg that connects to the floor, and you have an elevator leg that connects to your opponent's upper thigh and takes him over. With that elevator leg, you got 2 great choices with your foot position, and you got 2 great choices with your knee position. You have to understand this, very important. So let's have Giancarlo standing right here, okay? First option, for certain kinds of sumigaeshi, for example, butterfly sumigaeshi, I can put my left foot in my training partner's right thigh. This is similar to the sumigashi you guys have been doing from butterfly guard all these years. And as a result, I can lift and elevate and turn my training partner over into a throw. Okay? Even for variations of Yoko sumigashi, this too is permissible. If I move across my training partner's body, I can put my left foot in my training partner's right thigh and tilt my training partner over in the opposite direction. Okay? Can you see what is happening here? In the butterfly sumigashi, I throw him in front of me. And from here, just like we work from butterfly guard, we tilt the man over. I can also reposition myself, and from here, put my left foot in my training partner's right thigh, all the way up by the buttocks, where the buttocks meet the hamstring, and tilt the training partner over in that direction. Okay? However, in many cases, you are going to find that you can put your right foot in your opponent's right upper thigh and your right knee in front of his right hip and take him over to a Yoko sumigashi. Okay? So you can see that there are times your shoelaces will go from one thigh, one upper thigh, to the other, depending upon the directionality of throw. You have some choice here. I'm going to give you my preference very soon, okay? But a lot of times there's an article of choice. In the case of butterfly sumigashi, there is no choice. It's right foot and left thigh, and vice versa. But in the Yoko sumigashis and the front sumigashis, you get a bit of a choice here depending upon what you see happening in front of you. You can put your right foot in your opponent's right upper thigh or left, depending on circumstances. I'm going to come back to this soon and talk about positioning. There are some preferences that I have, but you can work on either side. It's not wrong, okay, to go from one side to the other. Let's have a look with Giancarlo's back facing the camera. So, for butterfly sumigashi, there's no choice. From here, my left goes inside his right. And as a result, you get the throw. Okay? Yoko sumigashi, a little different. From here, I have a choice between going upper thigh here and upper thigh here. My personal preference for most Yoko sumigashis and most front sumigashi is right versus right or left versus left. Okay? However, it's not 100% wrong to go here. I generally find most people get the best results here. Okay? And as a result, they can draw their training partner forward, get a good throwing action in that direction. Okay? So we have a little bit of leeway with front and side sumigashis, and there's only one right way of doing the butterfly sumigashi. The main thing is the placement should be where your opponent's buttock meets the hamstring. Okay? Try to avoid connecting all the way down here. This is not really optimal. You can move people, but it's hard to throw them. Right where the buttock meets the hamstring, right here. That's the optimal position to throw people. Either here or here. Now guys, you want to be popular among your training partners, and you want to have training partners who want to do these throws with you. Let's not be clumsy and go right up the middle and hurt your training partner. Okay? Let's make sure we go to the upper buttocks, not straight into your training partner's testicles. So from here, we come in and we get good results here, and you can get pretty good results here too, but you only get bad results up the middle. No one's going to want to train with you. So we lock in and tilt, and there's our throw. Okay? So that's the ideal foot position and the ideal knee position. I'm going to come back to that because I do have a preference for the right versus right. I'll discuss that next. But you do have a little bit of leeway here. You can go either side. The important thing is connect your shoelaces where the buttocks meet the hamstring. That's the optimal position to generate maximal force into the sumigashi. Be precise. Be known as that guy who works with the most efficient application of force. Where the buttocks meets the hamstring on either side is the best place you can apply your shoelace, the elevator, and get your man moving. A big part of my job as a coach is to make your life easier when you're on the mats. Throwing people is difficult work. Okay, if this guy doesn't want to be thrown, it's not easy to throw. Here's a simple rule that's going to make the job of throwing with sumigashi a lot easier for you when you start your sumigashi journey. I often use this with my students. Sometimes when you come out to grip people, you're wondering, okay, if I put my hand over his back, which foot do I throw him with? Which direction do I throw? There's a lot going on here, okay? Here's my simplification for you. I call it the right rule, okay? When I go to grip with sumigashi, regardless of the variation, there's going to be a power hand and a control hand. The power hand will typically connect to our training partner's upper back, like so. Okay, then I have a control hand that locks onto my training partner's sleeve. He will probably connect onto you at this point. From this position, we're ready to start throwing with sumigashi. Okay, now when we're in this position, I like to get my opponent bent over and I like to get his feet separated. So I typically pull like so. As I pull, the feet start to separate. Now from here, I'm going to take my right shoelace and put it in my opponent's right upper thigh as I grip with a right power hand, and I'm going to throw him over my right shoulder. So right foot to right thigh, right hand, throw him right shoulder. Right. Okay? Everything goes right. Lock up. Now from here, I step in 1. I step in 2, and my right foot goes to his right upper hamstring where it meets the buttocks as my right hand pulls him forward. And I throw him over my right shoulder and come up on top. If you switch positions, it will become the left rule. Okay? Because I'm right-handed, I normally throw right-handed sumigashi. I go right. If you're left-handed, you go left. Okay? This greatly simplifies what you need to do in any yoko sumigashi situation. Okay? Regardless of the grip that you employ. So if you're ever confused and you're thinking like, oh my God, what do I do here? Do I grip with my right hand? Do I take him over my left? What's going on? Okay? Just think to yourself, right. We come out. I take a right hand power grip. From here, I step in. I connect my right foot to his right thigh. My right hand pulls, and I take him over my right shoulder and into the throat. Right. That's a very simple rule that simplifies what you have to do for any yoko sumigashi. It also applies for front sumigashi. So we're here in front of our training partner. I come up, I pull, and I get my right hand on. Again, I come in, my right foot goes to his right thigh, and I take him over my right shoulder as my right hand pulls on his belt. And we end up with a nice throw. The only sumigashi that the right rule doesn't apply to, you probably guessed it, is the butterfly sumigashi. Okay, that doesn't apply to this throw. But most sumigashis in the standing position are side or yoko sumigashis, with a front sumigashi as a close second. Okay, the butterfly sumigashi is typically used more on the ground than it is in the standing position. So in the majority of cases, when you come out to throw your opponent with sumigashi in the standing position, just follow the right rule, and you'll know exactly what you need to do. We're trying to get you guys who have been using sumigashi on the ground for many years to translate it into the standing position. So you can take a sweep that you've been using for a long time and use similar skills to throw people as a takedown. If there's one thing that's going to screw you up when you first start this journey of yours, it's a misunderstanding about sumigashi in the standing position. Many jiu-jitsu players, when they first come to do a standing sumigashi, misinterpret sumigashi as a linear throw. Please understand this. Sumigashi, in the vast majority of cases, almost all yoko sumigashis and almost all front sumigashis are rotational throws. You rotate your opponent behind you, as opposed to sumigashi on the ground, which is typically a linear throw where you throw your opponent in front of you. So understand this. Butterfly sumigashi that you guys have all been using for many years. Typically, I go in a straight line in this direction, and I throw Giancarlo right in front of me. Okay, that's the sumigashi you guys have all been using for years. Yoko sumigashi and front sumigashi, you rotate your opponent. It's a circular takedown. Here's what happens if you try to go linear. If I grab Giancarlo, I get my grips, and we lock up. If I just pull in a straight line towards me, all I do is drag him on top of me. It's a disaster. Okay, it's not a complete disaster. You end up in open guard. It's not terrible, but you want it to throw the guy. You don't want to pull guard. But what happens if I fall and I rotate? I'm not even going to apply the Sumigaeshi hook. Not even going to do that. Not even going to use my foot to elevate. But watch what happens to Giancarlo. If I get a given grip for Sumigaeshi, strong body, and I fall across his body, I rotate Giancarlo. Okay? And even without the Sumigaeshi, I can create a strong rotational force that does 90% of the throw without even using a Sumigaeshi elevator hook. Okay? So if I grip up on my training partner and I just step and I fall across his body, you can see there's quite a bit of throwing power without even doing the Sumigaeshi. Just the action of falling and rotating him. This time, pay particular attention to Giancarlo's feet. In particular, his right foot. When you hit a Sumigaeshi properly, strong body, when I fall across my training partner's body, okay, I step in and I fall, his right foot comes off the floor. First, then the left foot, and he throws. Okay? So what I'm doing, same here, is I fall across his body. And I create a rotation that sends him over. Okay? I'm taking him around the corner and rotating him over to his back. I'm not just pulling him on top of me, which does no good at all. Okay? Then when you add that little foot hooking into his thigh, you're going to start launching people. I come in and walk like so. I step across the body and over he goes. Okay? You have to understand it's a circle around. You rotate him and throw him behind you. I throw him behind my back. We grip up, and from here, I step around the corner and I throw him behind me. Okay? And this is the key mechanical detail that makes standing Sumigaeshis work. I'm going to add another critical detail which runs throughout the Feet to Floor series. You guys are going to hear me say this so many times. You're going to say Danaher sounds like a broken record. And there's a reason why, because this really makes a difference to your throwing performance. Whenever you go to throw someone, obey the most important rule of throws. Look where you want your opponent to land. I'm going to say this again because it's extremely important. Look where you want your opponent to land. If you obey this simple rule, your whole body will line up in the correct direction and you will create very strong throws. The idea behind Sumigaeshi is to create a vortex into which your opponent is pulled into a whirlpool of action. Don't drag people forwards and just end up in open guard. Here, I do nothing to create the vortex. I just step in and pull him on top of me. There's no throw. He just bases out, and then you've got to settle for open guard. The idea is from here, I create a vortex, and I look where I want him to land. By looking in that direction, I line my whole body up, and I literally can't screw the move up. Okay? Let's contrast that with looking at my opponent. I come in, and from here, I step, and I look at him, and I get squashed. As opposed to, I step in, and I look where I want him to land. Okay? If you can obey those mechanical principles, you're going to go out there on the mat, you're going to throw a lot of people.